Okay, we finished basically the other topics, so we're going to go back to a topic that we learned a while ago, but it's a very important topic. It's relevant every single day, and that's the laws of brachis. What bracha you make, how you make a bracha, and what do you make a bracha, when do you make a before bracha, after bracha, all those things. It's a lot. Okay, now the Gemara says, in case it says like this, the Gemara asks a contradiction. One pasuk says in Tillim, La Hashem ha'aretz u'mloya, that Hashem owns the earth and everything in it. La Hashem ha'aretz u'mloya, Hashem owns everything in it. Another pasuk says, Hashemayim shemayim l'Hashem, v'aretz v'nasan l'vnei adam. He gave it to people. So the Gemara basically answers as follows. Before you make a bracha, and you take a food, before you make a blessing, a bracha on the food, it belongs to Hashem. Therefore, if you eat it without a bracha, you're stealing from Hashem. After you make a bracha, then Hashem says, now it's yours, you can eat it. So the Gemara says, it's like, you're not allowed to benefit from this world without a bracha, and the bracha is like redeeming it, that now the food is able to be yours, so therefore you'd be allowed to eat it. And it says, therefore it says, if you eat without a bracha, it's like you're moil behegdish, you misuse something at the Bais Din that you have to bring a carbon with the fifth and so on and so forth. Now there's no amount, we're talking about food dinim now, for brachas. There's no amount of how much food you need to eat to make a bracha. Any tiny crumb of food that you're eating, you need to make that appropriate bracha, whatever the bracha is. For an after bracha, then you have an amount. Revius, if it's liquid, a kazayas, if it's bread, if it's food. So a person has to understand it's very important to make a bracha, because otherwise we're actually stealing it from Hashem. Now technically, the din is, now we know there's different types of brachas. There's general brachas, and then there's more detailed brachas. So for instance, a general bracha would be a bracha that we say, Shahakol nihiyot b'dvari, that everything came about through Hashem's mouth. So technically, b'diavad, in halacha, that bracha is good for any food. Let's say by mistake, a person took a piece of bread that you're supposed to say, Hamotzi lachem min haaretz, and by mistake they said, Shahakol nihiyot b'dvari, it's fine, they don't have to make another bracha. So that's a general bracha. But then the Chachamim, who instituted all these brachas, which is rabbinic of nature, they made more details. For instance, if something grows from the ground, you make a Borei Pri Ha'adama. Something grows on a tree, you make Borei Pri Ha'etz. So again, those are general brachas. So anything from the trees, you make Ha'etz. Anything from the ground, you make Ha'adama. Now, therefore it's understood that what happens if by mistake somebody took an apple, which grows on a tree, and you're supposed to say Borei Pri Ha'etz, but by mistake you made Borei Pri Ha'adama. By mistake you made a Borei Pri Ha'adama. So that bracha is valid. Why is it valid? Because the tree also comes from the ground. You didn't do anything wrong. You didn't detail it more, but you didn't say anything wrong. Just said you made a shahakal on an apple, it would also be good. But what happens if somebody took a vegetable that you're supposed to make ha'adam on it because it's not a tree, and by mistake you said Borei Pri Ha'etz, which means from the tree, so then it's no good. You didn't make a kosher bracha because it's not true. This is not from Ha'etz. This is from the ground, and you said Ha'etz. So that bracha wouldn't be good. So he says, even though technically you can, say, I don't want to learn brachas. I'll make a shahakal on anything, or anything that grows on the ground, a tree, I'll just make ha'adama, and that's no good. You have to learn the brachas to know what bracha to make.
Rabbi,
What?
so if the salad is mix up adama,
We're not learning, let's go with a system. What?
So if someone says adama, for example, instead of an etz, by accident, the food that is supposed to be elevated to a certain level
Is elevated. Is elevated.
Elevated slightly less because of
No. If it's a kosher bracha, you did it. Yeah. Yes. That's why, by the way, even in halacha says, let's say we don't know if something's al eitzer or adam. Because certain bushes, we'll get there. There's a certain definition, what is a tree and what is a bush. Like for instance, a banana grows on a bush that mamish looks like a tree. But we know on a banana you make adam. I mean, bottom line halacha. Why? Because the definition of a tree is that the trunk is there from year to year, the branches are there from year to year. The only thing that comes new is the fruit. That's the definition of a tree. But a banana bush, even though it looks like a tree, but they cut it down every year, and it regrows. So that has a din of a bush, not a tree. You understand? So sometimes you have an halacha, an argument. What should you make? Should I make her eitz or should I make her adama? Well, let's say somebody is in a situation, okay? Certain berries might be her eitz, let's say certain berries might be her adama. I don't know, and I can't find out. So bottom line, what do? You make her adama, because her adama is for sure good. Now the Chacham went even into more details. Then they said, there's a brachot called mezainis. So even though mezainis comes from wheat, which comes from the ground, so technically I would be able to make ha'adama on mezainis, but the Chacham said, you have to make, it's a unique thing, so you have to make mezainis. But that is only under certain conditions. It has to be for one of the 5 grains, it has to be ground up into flour, it has to be cooked or baked, things like that. Then the Chacham made a more detailed bracha, that's on bread. Okay? And we'll get to the din and what happens if somebody by mistake made adam on bread, is it good or not? We'll see later different opinions about that. But the Chachamim made individual brachas just to be more particular and more detailed in the brachas that you're saying to praise Hashem. Then, for instance, they made on all liquids, basically you say shahakol niya bidvarim. But a Chacham came along and said, because wine is so precious, we make a bracha beri pri hagafen on wine, because it's special. So now what happens if somebody by mistake made a shahakol on wine? Again, we said before, shahakol is a bracha, that's good for everything, but b'diavad. Now that doesn't mean you should just make a shahakol on wine. But sometimes you have a question, is this, I'm not going into the details, but what happens if you have a juice that has grape juice in it and apple juice in it? You have a grape, orange or grape, whatever, apple. So now it could be a halacha question. Is it grape juice or is it apple? What is it? So then if you wouldn't know, and you can't find out, bottom line is, what does halacha say you do? You make a shahakol because that's for sure good. What?
You said, put the on grape and use.
Again, we're getting into all those details later. Okay?
What was the question?
They asked if you make on wine a beri pri hagafen. I mean, I'm sorry, and a grape if you said beri pri hagafen. So, but the evidence is good. I don't again, but I don't want to get into all these types of dinim because it is pri hagafen. You didn't. If the bracha didn't, so that it's a crude word to use. If you didn't lie in the bracha, it's good. Okay? If you make on an apple or adama, you didn't lie. It does come from the ground. Bottom line is it comes from the ground through the tree. Okay? But if you made on a potato beri pri ha'etz, so then it's not true. It's not pri ha'etz. If it's not pri ha'etz, you're not ha'etz in the bracha. You have to make another one.
Banana?
What?
Banana?
Banana?
What about banana?
How about banana? Banana from opinions?
No, banana is adama.
You say I eat some banana.
You're not ha'etz. Probably not.
Does banana have a din of
It doesn't have a din of an Elon. I remember, I mentioned this in the past. It was Tavshil Chav Gimel, I think it was, before most of you guys were born. 1963, my family came, we drove from New York to Boston. My mother's parents were in Boston, and then we drove to New York, and then we drove to New York and then to Boston, whatever. So we went into Yechidus. So my younger sister was 5 years old at the time. And the good part of Yechid is the Rebbe was talking to my little sister. She's 5 years old. The Rebbe asked her, what did Hashem create? In English. The Rebbe spoke to her in English. What did Hashem create? So she said, man, Adam. So the Rebbe turned to my father and said, yeah, that's the purpose of creation, is Adam. So she said Adam. Then the Rebbe asked her, what bracha do you make on a banana? She didn't eat bananas, so she didn't know what brachot was. So she didn't answer. So the Rebbe turned to my father and said, it's a machlekes in poskim. It's an argument, what bracha you make, so she didn't want to say. And then the Rebbe asked her, what bracha you make on an apple? So she said, very period. It was interesting the way the Rebbe was, dealing with this little kid. But anyway, so banana is, again, it's a shayla. What is a elon? What is a fruit? What is a vegetable? What?
Are the first 3 years of the life of the plant, or the first 3 years that it gives fruits?
No, first 3 years of the life of the plant. Okay, next. We're not learning Arla now. Now, okay, it's getting late, I have to leave. But the thing that you make a bracha on, okay, let's say you're taking food, and you want to make you're taking an apple, and you want to make a bracha on the apple. So you need to hold the apple in your right hand. Anything you're making a bracha on, when you make the bracha, you're supposed to hold it in your right hand. If you're left-handed, you hold it in your left hand, which is your right hand. Okay, but you're supposed to hold it in your hand. If you didn't, you're still yaitzim. Now, before you make the bracha, now what happens if, let's say, you're eating soup? So what do? So that the halacha is very simple. You take a spoonful of soup. So you have the soup in your hand, you're holding it with a spoon, but it's still in your hand. And let's say the soup is shahakol, whatever. So then you make a shahakol. So you're holding it in your hand, and then you put it in your mouth. Or something, you're eating with a fork or a knife, a spoon, whatever. So you hold it with the fork or the spoon. That's holding it in your hand, halachically. It's called in your hand. So you're supposed to hold it in the right hand. The time you make a bracha, you're supposed to know what the bracha is. You shouldn't take something like this. Okay, you turn to the guy next to you like, well, what's the end of the bracha? You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to know before what the bracha is going to be. Now, it's an interesting thing. What happens? A guy made a bracha, and it wasn't in front of him. It wasn't in front of him. A guy said, okay, I'm going to eat an apple. And he went, and he told somebody, bring me an apple, okay? And the guy didn't bring it. He makes very pure eights, and then the guy brings him an apple. It's no good. You have to make another bracha because you didn't hold, it wasn't in front of you when you made the bracha.